Hello, and thank you for joining the Lambertville Historical Society's virtual historic house tour. I'm Lisa Easton, a local resident and member of the Historic Preservation Commission here in town, and a preservation architect. I'm delighted to be with you today to share the work the Historic Preservation Commission has been doing to create a resource for the community in the form of an architectural styles handbook for the city of Lambertville. The purpose of this handbook is to provide a tool for homeowners and residents of Lambertville to learn more about the city's architectural history and to make appropriate informed choices when making alterations to their property. I run a small architectural practice, and together with my fantastic staff, we volunteer our time to prepare the handbook. To give you a little background, we researched previous surveys, historic designation reports, zoning ordinances, and tax assessors' records. The city of Lambertville covers approximately 1 square mile stretching north to south along the eastern shore of the Delaware River. The physical growth of the city occurred primarily between the years 1800 and 1900, with the greatest boom following the Holcomb Farm subdivision north of Delavan Street in 1858. The map on the left dates to 1851, and the map on the right from 1912, and I've highlighted both areas on the map where Delavan Street existed in 1851 and 1912, and you can see by 1912 the northward expansion of the city itself. The architectural significance of Lambertville has been recognized at the state and national levels, illustrated in the map on the left showing the National Register Historic District, which encompasses most of the 1 square mile town and contains 1,150 buildings. The city is also recognized at the local level, as illustrated in the map on the right, showing the Lambertville Central Business District. Lambertville is an excellent representation of major architectural trends in different architectural vernacular styles. The architectural fabric of Lambertville is quite special and very much intact. The handbook is intended to promote and encourage preservation and restoration and sensitive change to our existing context. The architecture of our community is the expression of our culture and evolution, and is what makes Lambertville remarkable. I've highlighted for you in red with the orange arrow on the left the confines of the Central Business District. So the map on the left is really showing you the grander size of Lambertville, what is protected, so to speak, or listed in the national and state registers of historic places, everything shaded in black. So that's quite an expansive area of the town. And on the right is the blow up of that Central Business District. But when you see it in context of the overall city map on the left, it's really quite a small parcel. The current zoning map, which you see here, builds upon the evolution of the city's dense commercial and residential pattern of development and sets out to define the boundaries of the city's local CBD, or Central Business District, which is the core of the locally designated historic district. So I've just blown it up on the right-hand side for you to see the street names, to see really the dense fabric that confines those 6 to 10 city blocks that really make up our CBD, our Central Business District. The map shown here is from the 2009 Historic Preservation Design Guidelines, which defines the city by neighborhood and not by period of development nor architectural style. This is an example of one of the pages from the 1979-1980 Comprehensive Historic Site Survey of the Delaware and Raritan Canal Park System. And all of these maps that I've been showing you and a couple of the pages that you're about to see are all showing the research and precedent studies that we've looked at to really cull through all of the information of what's been done and try to package that in a meaningful and useful way in our handbook. So this is showing one of the flanking side-by-side pages of the survey, or the inventory forms that are filled out for each of the properties that were surveyed in this historic structures inventory. So all of the properties in Lambertville are included in the survey. Many of them, however, are noted as being vernacular, and the vernacular term can cover a wide range of dates, of styles. It can encompass an overlapping of different periods. So it was our intent in the handbook to try and help people who are property owners to identify the meaningful periods of architectural influence on their building in order to make an educated guess or an educated approach to how to make sensitive, appropriate alterations to the property. So we've really expounded upon the term vernacular. So here are a couple of examples of the duplex style, as it's known, which are the side-by-side townhouses. And that is really the most prevalent typology, architectural typology in Lambertville, encompassing about 50% of the housing stock. So as you can see in these 4 examples, a wide range of style, of architectural ornamentation, of detailing, some with porches, some without. So there's quite a gamut of vernacular, so to speak, architecture here in town. So where do we start? We wanted to map the town in order to give the vernacular style a little bit more grounding. So here are 2 maps that we've pulled out of the 7980 Delaware and Raritan Canal survey. The lower map is showing the gradation of color, which is talking about the time periods of evolution of development. So it's not creating a style map per se, but it's creating a map that shows you when and how the city expanded. So the salmon color buildings, for example, really date from the 1700s to the mid 1850s. And then the darker blues, for example, are taking you into the latter part of the 19th century, beginning even of the 20th century. The map on the top is color-coded in a way to indicate architectural style or significance. So they're ranging from anything that's white is not significant or exhibiting no significance architecturally, ranging in yellow, which has notable examples, and many of those yellow blocks are what we really pulled from our survey to try and develop a little further to give them some architectural integrity or significance. The green and the blue are those that are more of the outstanding examples of the architectural styles in Lambertville. So this map, or the collection of these 2 maps, really influenced our approach to the project, or the handbook. So the handbook really incorporates all of this research gleaned from previous surveys, inventories, master plans, design guidelines, and builds upon the findings of these and presents it in an accessible format for understanding the architectural chronology and the significance of Lambertville. The handbook is organized with a brief introduction of the history and development of the city, and then it leads into the 17 different vernacular styles or architectural styles that encompass our architecture here in town. And they range from the stone vernacular, the federal, Greek Revival, Italianate, Romanesque Revival, French Second Empire, Queen Anne, Neo-Georgian, Art Deco, and even into the mid-century modern. We conclude the book with a visual dictionary or a glossary of architectural terms, we'll say, and then we go into all the site maps and we start to articulate our research and vetting of all of the information so that there are multiple ways a user could look through the book and find information that they were seeking. So briefly, the introduction, we did not want to reinvent the wheel. There are so many fantastic documents, surveys, historic resources, reports that are out there telling you the history and the development of the city. That really wasn't the intention of this book. This was more of a guidebook or pattern book, let's just say, toward architectural ornament and detailing. So we just do touch on the brief development of the city because it's incredibly important to understand our architectural context. And we try to illustrate that in a graphic way. So on the one page, we are doing the industrial or commercial development of town, starting from the 1700s up till today. It's an idea of this sort of timeline tape that takes you through the whole document. And it really pinpoints the major developments in the city and how we've gotten to where we are today. We complement that with the development or chronology of the vernacular and residential timeline in Lambertville, again, spanning from 1700 up till today. And we're picking out the styles and really trying to annotate them with the time frame. So you can really start to understand the color coding and the process for really looking through and using the document. Part of the introduction elaborates a little bit further on the 17 styles that I noted, the 17 architectural styles that are prominent throughout Lambertville. And we've gone a little bit further in selecting those examples that really illustrate succinctly the architectural style. So we're giving you the addresses of, for example, the federal style. 51 Bridge and 60 Bridge are very straight-laced examples of what the federal style encompasses. Likewise, the Neo-Georgian, for example, 38 Jefferson, 42 York, they are really illustrative examples of the Neo-Georgian style. So if you were a property owner, or if you're even just visiting Lambertville and you have a keen understanding or sense of architectural style and you wanted to really walk through the city and see its development and find those stellar examples, this would be a great resource for you, just on this one page alone, to guide you through those illustrative examples of architectural style here in Lambertville. So how do we get you through all this? It's a 1 square mile town or city, and we have over 1,000 buildings in it. So we took the map of Lambertville, the zoning map which you saw, and we made sure that all of the current properties were identified. We laid a grid over it, and within those grids, we then blew them up so that you could actually see street addresses, street names, etc. They are all color-coded, which you see along the top there. So building upon what we saw in the 7980 survey, we went a little bit further, and rather than give you these 10, 15, 50-year timeframes of evolution of construction, we chose to articulate it by architectural style. So that's where our color coding comes from. And we're going through all of the styles that we previously saw in the table of contents and that architectural vernacular residential timeline. So map 3 was what I highlighted in the previous slide. So here's the blow up of map 3 in the book. And you can see the addresses are visible as well as the street names. And we've color coded all of the blocks and all of the buildings so that you could look up and say, okay, well, I want to see this address and I notice it's a pink color, so that's going to be a Gothic Revival building. So it's a very sort of easy tool to use when you're flipping through the document. One of the things we did encounter when going through all these previous studies and surveys, noting that the vernacular terminology was used more frequently than not, we wanted to define that a little bit further. And the reason it was labeled vernacular was because there were some missing gaps of information. For example, when a building was actually constructed, was it shown on a map? Was it surveyed before? So we went through the tax assessor's documents for each and every property in Lambertville, and we collated that information and overlaid it on top of what we already had from the previous surveys. So you'll see this one highlighted box is illustrating 60 North Franklin Street, for example. The year built is 1865. The date source for that is the assessor's office. There's an alternate date noted for this in 1873 on one of the maps shown. So here's one of those situations where we have a little bit of a conflict of when the building was built. So we're trying to identify where the sources are so that we can come up with, or the owner of the property can come up with a period of development or period of architectural significance that they can relate their house to or their building to. So it's been termed vernacular, and that was termed vernacular in the 7980 survey. And so we've gone a little bit further by looking at that building more closely and identifying the two prominent styles or influences on the architecture are the federal style and the colonial revival style. So that would mean that if you were the property owner of 60 North Franklin and you wanted to make some alteration to the exterior of your property, you could look at federal and colonial revival style as your point of departure for figuring out what appropriate alteration would be acceptable. So then moving through the book, we start to illustrate those styles. So this is just an example of the earliest style that's noted in Lambertville. It's the stone vernacular. And so we've done a sketch of it, a freehand sketch of it, and it's based on a building that's actually in Lambertville. So all the examples are illustrative local examples. They're not imaginary examples, or they're not from other areas of the country or even other areas of the state. They're really honed in to Lambertville. So along with this, the way we organize the book, we create this timeline along the bottom, which you will see throughout. So the highlighted orange piece is the timeline or the time period when the stone vernacular style was heavily utilized in Lambertville. So that's 1700 to around 1810, 1812. Then we also note the primary characteristics of the stone vernacular style, or each style. This is the same way we would lay out each of the styles. So you have an image on the left, you have a brief description of what that style encompasses, the forms, the materials, the architectural vocabulary used throughout. So what the windows and doors were primarily set out to be, what the doors were typically like. So it gives you an idea of style, and it gives you an idea of evolution of that style. On the flanking page in the book, we're giving you photographic examples, again within Lambertville, that illustrate the style. So these are some of the quintessential stone vernacular examples here in Lambertville. So 32 Bridge Street, the Lambertville House is a great example. 44 South Main is another great example. And 29 Holcomb House is also a wonderful example of the stone vernacular style. Again, you look along the bottom, you see the timeline is tracking with us. So we just skip ahead a few styles, a few decades, and we're going to use the example here of the high residential Italianate. And so you see it's a very different style. It's a very more austere style, whereas the stone vernacular was truly more of a farmhouse type of style, a very vernacular, colloquial type of style. Here, the Italianate style, we're looking at anywhere from the 1840s to the 1880s. So there's a difference in the development of the town at this point. We have a very strong commercial base. So there's a prominence, there's a level of affluence that's coming to pass. So the style chosen to build your house or even your commercial structure was of this time frame and this time period. So certain elements, for example, that are primary in the high residential Italianate are the cornice, the large heavy cornice with the double brackets. And so that you'll see prevalent throughout Lambertville. And even on some of the buildings that have heavily been altered, if you peek around the sides, you'll oftentimes see the remnants of this double bracketing type articulation. Also, the windows are taller, they're narrow and tall, trying to bring in more natural light. Again, the technology at the time, producing larger glass panes was somewhat difficult. So you'll still have multi-light windows, but you have more of them. And the bays are systematically equally spaced across the front of the facade. So there's a very regular rhythm. And again, it's accentuating sort of the height of the building or stature of the building. It's a lovely, lovely style. So here are some of the examples in Lambertville that we showcase. Again, you'll see that duplex typology that we were talking about earlier. 50% of the stock of architectural fabric in Lambertville is attached dwellings like this. So it's magnificent to see it in a freestanding house like you see at 161 Swan, ranging up to a multifamily house at 1719 Coriel, or even 8385 North Union. So it's a very versatile style that has quite a range. So then we conclude the document with a visual dictionary. And this was intended to create a glossary of terms, so to speak. So you gain an understanding of what the components of each part of the building are, regardless of style. So brackets, you're seeing a double bracket like we just saw was illustrative of the Italianate style. Sometimes it would be a single bracket like you see in the lower slide that's illustrating bead and reel moldings. So again, we wanted to really stress our primary focus was Lambertville as example. So all of the images you're seeing throughout the book and throughout this glossary component are all examples here in Lambertville. So it makes it a very usable document. It makes it accessible because we live here. We all walk around these buildings all the time. So it made it really a wonderful opportunity to use Lambertville as our canvas, so to speak, for all the information we were implementing into the book. So it's really organized, starting with the summary of the architectural significance of Lambertville, as I mentioned, leading into the primary architectural styles and eras of construction. And what we strive to address in here is that Lambertville, is likely that a building blends features from different styles and does not fit perfectly into an academic style definition. So our book was really meant to help owners and readers Look for similarities in material, in detail, massing, etc. And look at other buildings around Lambertville and encourage appropriate alteration. The handbook is intended really to act as a guide or a pattern book, so to speak, and can create an opportunity for property owners to understand the significance and the integrity of the city's architectural landscape and fabric. So it's really been a wonderful opportunity for myself to volunteer my time to put this together. It's brought me a greater understanding of the beauty of the town that I live in. And it really is meant to showcase our beautiful, exceptional architectural integrity. The buildings, not all of them are wonderful examples of a high style. Not all of them are in wonderful condition, but collectively as a whole, the context of Lambertville is one of the most significant examples of an architectural historic district worth preserving and maintaining. So I am happy to answer any questions. The book is in production right now. We're heading to the printer soon, and it will be available to the public shortly. We just don't really know yet how we're going to distribute this. It's a rather large document. The format is book format in 11 by 17 in full color. So we're hoping that you'll all enjoy it and find it useful. And we're, of course, always welcome to any comments and suggestions you may have, and it should be a living document, so we should be updating it accordingly and building upon it. So this is really our first step in sharing the beautiful architecture of Lambertville. So thank you very much for having me share this with you, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you.